Rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. The time is 6:57 a.m. and you are listening to Good Morning Aurora, and it's Monday, y'all. We are the second largest city's first daily news podcast, and there's a lot going on. Hopefully, you had a great Easter Sunday and Easter weekend, and hopefully you went out for First Friday, because we did. It was cool. We went out and splashed a little bit. Your favorite radio host and your favorite radio co-host on Fridays, Jeanette, me and my sister from another mister, we went out and, shook it up a little bit. Went and shouted out some of the spots downtown and made the rounds. So check out the little compilation that we put together for First Fridays returning. And that's on our YouTube page. And we posted it on Facebook as well. So as you know, we got the news coming up that we do live on Facebook every morning. And that's going to be at 8 o'clock a.m. So I'm going to condense things and give you some of the headlines right now. And we're about to get into a great interview. All right. So if you're looking for a job on the 9th, so this Friday, there's the virtual career fair going on, sponsored by Waubonsie Community College and IC3SP, which is Illinois Community College Career Services Professionals. It's also in partnership with IDES, which is the Illinois Department of Employment Security. Students and community members are welcome. Now you have to register. That registration link has been posted to our Facebook page and the entire post itself. So please take part in that. May 1st, there is the march or La Marcha for Immigration Reform, Legalización 2021. The meeting point will be at the corner of Claim and State Street in Aurora at noon. And the time of the march will be at 1 p.m. And again, that's May 1st. So join this to learn about and get involved with the demand for immigration reform in 2021, being put on here in Aurora by some of our local community partners. All right. The Aurora Rotary Club has two great initiatives going on. The first is the Diversity and Inclusion Scholarship. West Aurora and East Aurora High School seniors are eligible for a $1,000 scholarship, and the application is available at rotaryaurora.org and due by the 15th. And the next great thing that the club has going on is they're teaming up with Ballydoyle to have the Downtown Aurora Scavenger Hunt. Now that'll be May 14th from 5 to 10 p.m. Teams of 4 are $150, and that includes drink tickets. The hunt headquarters will be Ballydoyle, 28 West New York Street in downtown Aurora. Sign your team up today at rotaryaurora.org. All right. It's going to be an outdoor event encompassing a lot of territory downtown. Masks are required. Don't forget, coming up on Wednesday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., there's the Improving Procurement Policies and Practices, a disparity study virtual meeting that's being hosted by the City of Aurora in conjunction with Griffin and Strong PC. We posted this information and the link to register an RSVP on our Facebook page, so please check that out. And also, don't forget that the Aurora Regional Fire Museum has a meat raffle going on. Tickets are $25 each, and the drawing is on April 14th at 7 p.m. There's 3 prizes. The grand prize is the deluxe meat package, $370 value. Second place is the steak package, a $75 value. And third place is the Griller's Delight, a $50 value. Shouts out to our friends at the Aurora Regional Fire Museum. Okay. Don't forget, check out Cottonseed Creative Exchange, 8 North Broadway in downtown Aurora. We were kicking it there on Friday night. Shouts out to all the veteran-owned businesses here in the city of Aurora. And Cottonseed Creative Exchange is where you can get your Good Morning Aurora merch. So get your T-shirts. It's getting nice out there. The weather, it's going to be T-shirt weather all around very, very, very soon. So make sure that you guys get your shirts, get the gear, get ready for spring and summer with Good Morning Aurora. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts at. And if you're a trucker, Burr, burr. If you're hauling coal or grain from Kentucky to Kenosha, Overcast and Breaker, you can find Good Morning Aurora on your apps. All right, get ready to tune in 8 a.m. on Facebook live and check out this great interview that we got coming up next. And that is the news. Okay, all right.
Goodness.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad to have you on the show.
It is so truly great to be here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's been a while in the making, but we are here now. We're here. For our listeners and our viewers, let us know who you are and where you're from.
Sure. My name is Brooke Shanley, and I live here in Aurora in the 9th Ward. I actually live in an apartment complex near 34 in Farnsworth, and oddly enough, because I live in the Kendall County portion of Aurora, so, you know, one of our 4 counties that make up Aurora, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yep.
So I live in Kendall County, but when I go to take my trash out to the dumpster, the other side of it is Kane. Like, I'm literally right on the line.
Oh, wow. And yeah, Farnsworth and Ogden. So yeah, I know that area pretty much.
Yeah.
Weird how that happens.
Isn't that weird? And I swear, even talking to my neighbors, no one knows what county they're in because DuPage is just on the other side of the complex.
Right.
Because you have the cement quarry place that's right there.
Yes.
And you go over there and you hit DuPage. And so depending on where you're searching, if you're getting your car insurance or whatever, and they ask you what county you're in, they'll look it up for you. And like when I first moved here, they told me I lived in DuPage.
Like, nah, bro, you got
And
it
it
wrong.
wasn't until I tried to vote in municipal elections that they're like, no, you live in Kendall.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, and that was obviously years ago, and I've gotten that straightened out, but yeah.
Right. Interesting. Now, were you born and raised in Aurora? Are you from...
No.
No?
No, I was born and raised in Roselle.
Okay.
So, still suburbs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I went to Lake Park High School,
Okay.
which is part of the Upstate 8 Conference, and I was in track and field all through high school. So, I did compete in the conference and sectionals and regionals that were held at the East Aurora track and field.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, I actually I've been in Aurora, at least in some way, shape, or form, throughout part of my youth and into my adulthood prior to moving
Very
here.
much familiar with what's going on here in the city.
Yeah.
What's Roselle like?
Well, it's been a really long time since I've lived there.
Okay.
I left Roselle when I was maybe 19. So I left home at 17, so just before graduating high school, which that's a whole story in and of itself. But
As high school typically is, right?
well, you know, something I don't typically share is that technically, and it is technically, I did drop out my senior year, and then came back to graduate with my class at the end.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I was just missing one class, so it wasn't too bad.
Right, exactly. Now, growing up, what impact did your dad have in your life?
You know, growing up, honestly, I didn't see him a lot. Like, we were a cohesive family, you know, nuclear family unit, right? But my dad was in sales, and he had an upper management type position.
Right.
And the company that he worked for was based out of Switzerland and did a lot in Switzerland and Germany. And so he was constantly traveling. I mean, there's moments growing up with my dad that I remember, like when I played softball and I was the pitcher, he would be out there and, you know, he would help me train and different things like that. But, you know, and the occasional daddy-daughter dance and that kind of thing. But I don't know that I can necessarily assign a role to him. I love my dad. I do. He's great. But, you know, just due to circumstances, trying to provide for our family, his job led him to travel a lot.
Right. Is that where you got your independent streak?
Probably.
And I say that purely in observation. You know, I just I wonder, you know, because you seem to be a very independent, go-getting person.
I think that's a fair assessment.
So now we find ourselves running for Alderman-At-Large, and there's 3 different candidates. You're one of 3 different candidates. What does being an alderman mean to you?
To me, being an alderman really means helping to make sure our city is the best that it can possibly be, using what we have here and what truly makes us great, which is the people who share our city with us. As a teacher for 17 years now, I've always dedicated myself to working with people, whether it be my students or the students in other classrooms or other grade levels, right? But also their families, and not just within any one particular school building, but in different districts. I had roles that did make it possible for me to interact and work with families in multiple buildings within the school district in different capacities. And so and even in my union work, I have always strived to really make sure that we, as an organization, depending on what the organization is,
Sure.
That we make sure that we are lifting others up, that we are helping everybody to be living a life that is their utmost potential, their best self, if you will. Because when we make sure that everybody's okay, then we do better, right?
Oh, yes.
So, and while this is not assigned to him, I had the privilege of meeting William McNary at a conference that I was at. He presented and came to spend time with us at one of our state level union meetings. Mm-hmm. And he talked about the idea of when that we all do better when we all do better, right?
Right.
Right? And it's so true. That's something that I think has inherently been part of me throughout my entire life, just that thought, that philosophy. But until I heard him talk about it, I didn't have the words to truly and accurately represent that. And so that really is who I am and what I believe and what I strive to work for.
And what's the difference between an alderman at large and just the alderman that everybody in the city pretty much knows about, I guess, regular alderman? What's the at large add to it?
So the at large, in its simplest form, just means that you are really involved and not assigned to one specific ward, but that your district, if you will, is the entire scope of the city.
Okay.
So geographically speaking, the constituency makeup for an at-large alderman is the same as the constituency makeup for the mayor.
Okay.
Because you're advocating for the whole city.
Right.
Right. And that's not to say that any specific ward alderman doesn't look to advocate for the whole city, because once again, we all do better and we all do better,
yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so we need to make sure that we're working towards that. And our ward-specific aldermen do try to work together to make sure that we move our city forward, as well as being part of a collaborative unit on the council.
What is your educational background post-high school?
Okay, so I took some time off. So I left home at 17, so prior to my high school graduation. And I took a couple classes here and there at like College of DuPage because of where I was living at the time. But nothing consistent, nothing full-time, nothing even that we could say was part-time. We're talking like a class here or a class there when I could afford to do so.
Of course.
Because I was busy working 4 and 5 jobs at one time just to be able to pay the rent, put food on the table, those kind of things.
The story of many people, or perhaps too many people here.
Too many people.
Yep.
Too many people. And I did that for many years. And can truly relate to the struggle of trying to balance so many work schedules with just what you need to do to live a normal, happy, healthy life.
What does it mean? I mean, when we talk about people who are literally working a few jobs to either make the rent or to pay for school, like, what can we as a society do to change that? I'm sure it's not a quick fix, but what,
I think there is a lot that needs to change in order to really fix that, and it really starts on a very broad level, right? Or at least eventually needs to get there,
sure.
Right? In the city, at the municipal level, I'm sure there are things that we can do, working in tandem with our different nonprofit organizations and different service entities within the city. But if we're really looking to help people out, we need to make a shift as a society as a whole and look at where our values are. And that's a much harder shift. And that involves a lot of education and a lot of soul searching on the part of individuals too, right?
Right.
So, just things like making sure we have affordable housing. That helps.
Right.
Right? Even things such as, trying to change our perspective on what jobs are valued and which ones are not so valued, at least in the eyes of society, right? Because I'm sorry, I may be an educator, but that doesn't mean that I'm any more or less important than the letter carrier who's delivering my mail.
Absolutely.
Or the cashier at the grocery store who is helping me to be able to purchase the food that I need to put on my table, right? I don't see that there really needs to be any one of those positions that's more highly valued than the other, because we all have a role to play.
Yeah, I totally do. I agree with you. And I think that one of the things that is a positive that perhaps came out of a negative is that I think that all humans in America now, because of the pandemic, can see that, like, you know what? Yeah, you thought that the person in the hospital emptying the bedpans was just whoever.
Disposable.
And that's not the case at all.
No, it's not.
That's not the case at all.
And I think that, the pandemic, for as stressful as it's been, for as much negative impact as it has had in the lives of so many people, I think it's really presented us with a really great opportunity as a society. Because if we stop and think, pre-COVID or pre-pandemic, if you will, yeah, we were, as a society at large, we were doing stuff, we were moving, we were on that hamster wheel.
Oh.
Right? But where was that hamster wheel taking us? And I think, honestly, the only way we were going to be able to shift as a society was if something happened that caused us to literally stop.
Yep.
And that's what the pandemic has done.
Yes.
It really caused us to just stop. And it created this great pause in everything we did. Just this great moment of pause, this moment to sit back, where we were forced to spend time with ourselves, right? And our own people in our households, or like me, I live alone, just myself and my parents, right?
Right.
And sit back and have more than ample time to sort through your own personal thoughts and beliefs and your motives and your reasons for why you do things. And I think a lot of people are coming out of this quite changed.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. And as we're moving out of the pandemic, I think we need to revisit where we were pre-pandemic and make some adjustments. Because if we don't, I don't think we'll have really learned the lesson that we needed to learn during the pandemic.
I agree. At least on a personal level, I was chasing it, right? I was chasing the proverbial, oh yeah, I was in that wheel, right? I'm, $200 a month for the metro ticket, and then it's an hour in, and then 8 to 5, and then an hour back. Yeah, totally. And you're chasing it, right? But what's your quality of life like? And I agree, yeah, COVID shut all that down, and you have no choice but to reflect. Definitely. So now you were a teacher for 17 years.
I have been, yeah.
Let's talk about that. So take me to the first day of being a teacher. What was that like? What was, when did you get how does it work for a teacher? You get the jacket? Where's the jackets back then? I don't know.
No, it's not. It's not Hogwarts. It's not Hogwarts.
She was like, jacket? What the hell?
Been watching a little too much Harry Potter.
Right.
Okay. No, so, most teachers will tell you that they wanted to be a teacher ever since they were teeny tiny, right? Like, they knew right away, and they'd play school at home with, their dolls or their siblings or whatever, right? And then they became the teacher and fulfilled their dream. I was not that person. I was not that person. So growing up, I always wanted to become an attorney. I wanted to be a public defender. That was my biggest goal in life. Fortunately, unfortunately, my life took a different path. I didn't follow the what we might consider the typical path out of high school, the that whole notion of, oh, I graduate high school, I go to college, I, graduate, I get a job, I find a partner, I make a family, purchase the house, blah, blah, blah.
Kids, defense, the whole thing.
Yeah, my life has not followed that path.
I knew we were going to be friends as soon as you walked in here.
My life has not followed that path.
Right.
So like we said, on a technicality, I dropped out of high school first semester my senior year. I was only missing one class. Now, I was the kid that was in theater and on speech team and did track and took AP and honors courses. And high school just was not my thing, though. It was not my thing. And family life was challenging for me.
Right.
Mostly because of a severe independent streak that I may have inherited from my father. I left home at 17, so prior to taking the class I needed to graduate, and then took a class or two here and there in my 20s while working multiple jobs. And then at about 27, 28, I started attending Benedictine University full-time. And that's where I did my undergrad, and I studied Spanish. Because I said, okay, I have this opportunity now where I can go to school and study full-time. I am going to study something that I find pleasure in, something that makes me happy. And so I had always liked Spanish. As a kid, we had Spanish-English dictionaries at home, and I'm not exactly sure why.
Right.
And
I was working in Switzerland, but y'all got Spanish.
Well, no.
Very diverse at
okay,
at home.
so my mom did study to become a Spanish language teacher in college. She graduated college. My dad never did. But she never used her degree. She got married, stayed at home. She actually has even come to tell me that she never really wanted to teach. So, I think it was one of the leftovers from her college days that just sat on the shelf and got dusty. But, so I would sit there and read the dictionary as a kid because, nerd, big nerd.
Oh, yeah.
Big nerd. But I didn't know any better when I was picking it up what it really was, right? But it seems to be something, as like in middle school you take Spanish, and then I started really liking the sound of it, so I would start putting on the radio in Spanish and doing different things, right? I was just drawn to it. So when it came time for me to say, okay, I'm in my late 20s now, I have an opportunity to study full time, I don't have the luxury of changing a major multiple times.
Right.
And as much as I want to be an attorney, I really didn't see at that time how that was possible with the amount of years of schooling that would entail.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'm going to major in Spanish, I'll minor in education, and this is going to be what it's going to be. I ended up dropping my minor, so I only graduated with my major in Spanish. Before graduating, I ended up applying to a university in Mexico and getting accepted there, and so I drove to Monterrey, Mexico, and rented an apartment and worked at a taco stand and took classes in El Tecnológico, which is one of their private universities, but it's really it's got a good reputation. It's got a really good reputation. So that's where I went, and I came back and didn't know what I was going to do. And I found a private school that was looking for a Spanish teacher. You didn't have to be certified or anything. And so I taught Spanish to pre-K through 4th graders. And I also worked for Little Friends, doing in-home respite care for children with autism. Hence my blue today.
Shouts out.
Shouts out. Light it up, blue.
That's right.
And then, after that, I was also working as a teacher's assistant in District 203, a bilingual teacher assistant. So I was managing, again, multiple jobs.
Yeah.
But luckily, the director of ELL services in District 203 told me about this way that I could actually teach in bilingual classrooms.
Okay.
And so I did exactly what she told me to do, which was get myself a substitute teaching certificate, take the state test to prove that I was actually fluent in Spanish, not just speaking, but reading and writing as well.
Certainly.
And then take that to the ROE and say, here, and they give you a teaching certificate. So that is what I did. Now, the certificate was only valid for a certain period of time. It was temporary and contingent upon you going back to school. I wasn't certain that I really wanted to stay in the elementary level at that point in time. Like, I was like, no, maybe I'll go get my PhD in Romance, Language, and Literature. I wanted to go to University of Chicago and then become like a college professor and do research and that kind of stuff. That interested me at the time. But I also knew I had to pay the bills. And I also knew I was really tired of working multiple jobs at the same time.
Ooh.
So I, in the process of getting my teaching certificate, I started a master's program at Loyola. Going towards that first avenue of thought, I did a master's in Spanish language and literature. And then, as I'm working on that, I'm realizing, wow, well, I actually need to get a teaching license. So as I was finishing up that master's, I started another master's program at DePaul.
Okay.
And I've completed all the coursework towards, I just need to do my final paper. Towards a Master's of Education in Bilingual Bicultural Education.
Okay.
So I've done that as well, and they were happening simultaneously while I was teaching. And once I was done with all my classes, it was nice to just have one job again.
Yeah.
Which I quickly filled up that space doing other things, though, right? Because that's just what I do.
You do a lot of community stuff.
I do
Like
do
a
stuff.
lot. I think I've even seen pictures of you gardening.
Really?
I think so. I think it may have been one of the community gardens or Marie Wilkinson's.
No.
Oh, okay. I this is on me, so I'll have to go back and check my.
Let me know because I do quite a few things, and so maybe it's just one of those moments that isn't clicking for me right now because this is my first coffee of the day.
Ah, yes. Okay. So what was Monterrey, Mexico like?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Is Monterrey a state?
No, it is
Okay.
a city in the state of Nuevo León.
Okay.
It is about 3 hours from Laredo, Texas. So super close to the border. It is, well, at the time it was, I think it still might be, the third largest city in the country.
Okay.
So huge metropolitan area.
Right.
Amazing museums, great green spaces to go visit. Just absolutely fabulous. I had the best time living there. I really did. And I took advantage of my time there too and made sure I traveled. To date, I actually have traveled to more states in Mexico than I have here in the U.S., which I'm hoping to rectify at some point. But, it was just because how life played out, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's still really good and very being very well traveled. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. So there's 4 pillars which make up your message. Okay, and we're going to talk about those and what an aldermanship of Brooke Shanley would look like. So let's talk about reducing property taxes. Okay, I'm the resident. How are we going to do that, Brooke?
First and foremost, we need to look at our city budget. Any city's budget is a reflection of a city's morals and values, right? And its priorities. We work in a really, really large budget here in the city, and the people who spend countless hours trying to put it together, I am not in any way, shape, or form discounting that effort or their work because it is not an easy task. But I think we really need to sit down with it now more than ever, especially as we're still in the pandemic and hopefully coming out of. And we need to look to make sure that it truly does align with our values going forward, right? Because like I said earlier in our conversation, and I'm not sure if we were on air at that point in time.
I don't think we were. That makes it even more fun. It's like, what? We need that bonus material.
Right? Like the people, the society we were before COVID hit is drastically different than who we hopefully will be coming out on the other side of it. And so just because of circumstance, we're going to need to sit down and really reevaluate some of our stuff. So looking at the budget to see what we can do, whether it's grant funds coming in or different extra funding coming in federally. I know that, the counties are getting different CARES funding in quite large amounts. And, really getting creative with that so that we can help to alleviate some of the burden that our residents are really shouldering for us as a city. And they shouldn't be. So that's step one. Now, property taxes are a complex situation because it's not just an effort at the municipal level, right? We need to look at the county and state levels too. And so that means sitting down and having tough conversations with other elected officials and working collaboratively to create something that will create the greatest good for the most amount of people.
I will note that you used emphasis on that word collaboratively.
Yes.
That's right.
None of this can be done in isolation, and nothing can move forward just because one person wants it to.
Responsiveness and transparency. Let's talk about that.
Sure. As Alderman-At-Large, I am responsible for the constituency of the entire city.
Right.
Right? And I have done I feel, a fairly good job to date, responding to emails and phone calls and such from constituents that have reached out to me throughout the campaign. It's something that I work on daily, even just with my students and their families, making sure that I'm available and able to answer their questions, right? So it's a skill set that I already have, and I'm just going to transfer over and amplify.
Right.
Obviously, in my position, I would like to have monthly Zoom calls, but I'd also like to incorporate in person when it's safe to do so. But I don't think the Zoom meetings should die out. I think it does provide a higher level of access to people who maybe can't come to an in-person meeting for whatever reason.
Right.
As a city, I think that one of the positive effects of COVID has been that all of these committee meetings are now online.
Yes.
Right? I think this is huge as far as transparency. It's a great step forward, but it's just that. It's a step forward. And, there were things in place prior to COVID. There's things that have come about during COVID, but in order to be truly transparent, you need to make sure that everybody has access. Without that access piece, you're not there. You could put everything online, but if no one can get to it,
right,
you're still not being transparent, right? The intent may be there, but the end result is not that.
Of course.
So, we have the City of Aurora in Espanol, right? Where we stream all these meetings in English.
Right.
I'm sorry, but it is City of Aurora in Espanol. So if the point is to reach our residents who either need or prefer to have their information in Spanish, then we're not meeting that goal, because we're providing them everything. We're providing our English speaking constituency.
Right.
Right? When we're titling it under Espanol, which becomes almost a misnomer at that point.
Sure.
And, sitting in this room with you, I see a lot of equipment. And I know we have a very large staff. I can't imagine, while it would require time and effort, I think once a process was really laid out, having some type of captioning or dubbing, even if it happened, after the production was streamed, I think it would go a long way in creating access. Now, that being said, this is all stuff that is done through a technological medium. Not every resident in the city, in fact, a large number of residents of the city, either don't have the technology or have tools but don't know how to use them, or only have varying degrees of familiarity with use.
Right.
Right? There's a lot of different factors there that prevent someone from being able to access content online.
Absolutely.
And so then the next piece that we need to do to increase transparency is in that access piece again, right? We need to make sure that all our residents in the city have access to internet connection, the technology to connect to that internet connection, and the know-how for accessing information. And I think we can team up with different organizations across the city, part of it being the public library, part of it even looking at some of our existing groups like Invest Aurora as far as that technology piece. There are a lot of different things that we could access to make sure that happened, and it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. If the school district I work for, at the beginning of the pandemic, could find a way to get every single student internet connectivity and a device, then I think as the city we can do that as well.
And what did 131? Yeah, that's right. That's right. That was a big thing. That was in our news. Yeah, we put that out there. Heck yeah.
That is a big thing, and they didn't do it just for our city, but they also shared devices with Oswego 308.
Shouts out to EASD 131. Next, ending pay to play politics.
Sure. And that goes along with transparency, right? We want to make sure that everything goes through the right processes and procedures within the city. Are we, following the codes and the policies and the actual letter of it and the intent? When we go ahead and put out contracts to bid, when we are bringing different groups into the city to do business with the city, are we following everything we need to follow? And are we being transparent in releasing that information to the public, right? Are we doing that? And then when that's all out in the open, are we seeing some connections that maybe we shouldn't be seeing, or trends that we shouldn't be seeing?
Right.
And I think that, pay to play is unfortunately it ends up getting linked in with politics and business and government. Like it just kind of, and the bigger the city, the more it's there, right?
It's literally like the floaty that comes with the pool, kinda.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to have to acknowledge it, but yeah.
It doesn't need to be there.
Right.
It doesn't need to be there because, the city council, they pushed forth an ethics ordinance.
Yeah.
And I remember the conversation around it too, like the conversation at the time, because that was the last municipal cycle that was really, kind of at the forefront. The big thing that people were saying on the council was that, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but that, oh, well, the Illinois State Board of Elections, because the big thing was the cap on campaign contributions at the time.
Right.
And it's still a thing, this cycle, right? It hasn't changed. It hasn't morphed or gone anywhere. But the talk at the time and the reason for not instilling lower caps on the campaign contributions was that the State Board of Elections in their campaign financing already has in their policies, established caps for the campaign contributions. To that I say, okay, good. They set the base.
Right.
Don't we want to raise the bar?
Right.
Like, shouldn't we strive to do better than the bare minimum?
Who wants to just do the bare? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe I'm an overachiever, but but and too, like, at the end of the day, the government is supposed to represent the people, right? We're supposed to work collaboratively,
right,
with all of the entities that make up our city,
right,
and that's our residents first and foremost, and then our businesses and different organizations in the community. Because just because you're a business or an organization doesn't mean you're not a constituent. Right? You're part of that city.
Absolutely.
You're part of the functioning of the city. You're no less important. But we need to actually be working for and with all of the entities and people, and not just the ones that have been helpful to any one specific elected official.
Certainly. Financial responsibility, which seems to tie into the last true things we were talking about. But yeah, let's tackle financial responsibility.
Sure, and that's just really making sure that our budget truly reflects our morals and our values and our priorities moving forward.
What does America mean to you?
Ooh, that's a big one. What does America mean to me? Ideally, I would like to see, and my vision of America would be one where everybody was able to really have what they need as they need it in order to live the best life for them, right? Because my idea of what my best life is may not be your idea of what your best life is, right? Because we're different people.
Right.
But we should all have the opportunity and the access and the resources necessary to be able to establish that. And I'd like, ideally that would mean people working together.
Right.
Right? Collaboratively. But it's not about anyone trying to get to that 1%.
Right.
Right? Maybe if that's your dream and that's your best life is to be part of the 1%, great, kudos, great, fabulous. But please bring some other people along with you.
Yeah, and you should not be striving to get there on the backs of other people. It's not you don't get there by stepping on people.
No, because in an ideal America, as in and it applies to ideal leadership too. Like, as a leader, in any capacity, right? The first thing you should be doing once you step into that leadership role is looking behind you to see who you're going to bring up next.
Girl, preach.
It's not about getting there and saying, oh, now I have all the power and what am I going to do with it? No, you may have greater access to a variety of things, resources, finances, whatever, but your goal shouldn't be that this is where I'm going to be and I'm going to keep everybody out of it. No, you have to look back and try to bring people up behind you and help lift others up. So even if they're not looking to step into your leadership role, that they can fill another vacancy.
Right.
Right? One that aligns with what they want to do. And so it's always about looking for that next pool to lift up.
Totally agree with that. Now you're the VP of a local union?
I am.
What union is that?
So I am currently the vice president of AFT Local 604. When 2 years ago I left my position teaching in the Villa Park School District to come here and dedicate my time to the East Aurora School District. It meant a lot of different things, one of which was giving up my tenure and starting from zero. The other piece of it was changing my union affiliation and starting from zero.
What was that like?
It was a transition. And as with any transition, there were positive experiences and others that were a bit more challenging, right? Within IEA and NEA, I did a lot of work. I was the actual president of the Villa Park Educator Association, so the Villa Park Teacher Union, I was their president. And then the region council that they flowed into, I was the vice chair and had just been elected to be the chair of that region council.
Wonderful.
Which served, if I remember correctly, 12 different school districts worth of unions.
Wow.
And would have given me a seat on the board of directors for the IEA. So then I come here to East Aurora and I start over with IFT and AFT and immediately jump right in because I've been back in East Aurora for 2 years now. And I have I've already become the vice president of AFT 604.
And what does AFT stand for?
The American Federation of Teachers.
Okay, all right. We get a lot of acronyms on this show. So I've typed up things that have been wrong. ROE, Return on Everybody. No, it's Regional Office of Education. Okay. Yeah. Now, what's the biggest impact that COVID has had on your life?
Well, back in spring of last year, I actually had COVID. Thankfully, I was able to stay at home and take care of myself, and it was fine. Well, as fine as it can be, right? But that's certainly not the biggest impact. So I've lived alone for basically my entire adult life, right? And I like living alone, at least for now, right? It's not something I have an issue with, or I wouldn't keep doing it. But it's one thing to live alone when you're able to go about all these different activities. Like, I'm a person who keeps really busy, right? I go to school, I teach, I handle my union work, I'm involved in different community events, I'm involved in different political things, and so, while living alone, I don't spend a lot of time alone.
I know what you mean by that.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And my family, the vast majority of my family lives out of state. So that's not part of my day-to-day prior to COVID either.
Right.
COVID hits and everybody's, on lockdown, if you will.
Yep.
And it was very sudden and very drastic, and just really coming to terms with the fact that, wow, I'm alone in my house for many, many hours.
Right.
In a row, many days,
Super.
many weeks. It really forced me to like say, okay, who is Brooke really, and what are we gonna do? And so there was that internal struggle because, you know, and part of being a teacher is teaching, and being a teacher becomes your identity. If anybody asks me, first and foremost, you know, like, hey Brooke, so who are you? Oh, I'm a teacher. That's like the first thing that's gonna come out of my mouth.
Right.
So really, even though I was teaching, everything literally stopped for a period of weeks, and then as things slowly took on the Zoom mode of things,
Right.
you know, that was another adjustment, but it was really just that time to really sit and say, okay, who am I as a person? What am I going to learn about myself during this time?
Right.
Because I'm going to use this time and give it value.
Now, it was Wednesday evening that you took part in the NAACP
Yeah.
Zoom. How did that go?
You know, I was really happy with the experience
Okay.
on the forum. I think the NAACP did an excellent job hosting, and let me see if I can find the word in English. Sometimes my brain gets stuck.
Were you going to use it in Spanish? You can use it if you want.
Moderating. There we go. Moderating the forum. You know, they were an absolute joy. Patrick Watson, he's great. He's great. I have attended other Zooms of his for like phone banking
Right.
and different things, different trainings he's done. I've attended those. And so he's just always a joy as far as just calling and following up and the emails and everything. And it, different from the mayoral forum, it was a much more civilized forum.
Oh, right.
It was a much more civilized forum. And that was good. And I think that just speaks to the integrity and the professionalism of all the candidates.
Right. Good stuff. All right. Now, we saw in the election, which was in February, so the township election, I think it came out that the Kane County Clerk, Mr. John Cunningham, said that it was dismal.
Mm-hmm.
Turnout was dismal. We saw how bad it was. What can we, yourself as a leader, but us, the general public, what can we do to boost that up, right? How can we go about having more people take part in the voting process and getting involved?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with education. People need to see value in going to the voting booth to cast a ballot. And while I see the value of it, it doesn't mean that someone else does, right? I'm kind of in the thick of things. And the things that I enjoy in life have pushed me in a direction that says, no, voting is important, this is what you gotta do. Some people have grown up in families where the family unit has always made it almost like an activity or a field trip, like something that you do together as a family unit. You go and you vote. It becomes a tradition. It's part of their family dynamic.
After that, we're going to get ice cream.
That's right. So some people grow up that way, but other people don't. And there are narratives among people that know my vote doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count, I'm going to vote, and it doesn't matter because the person that, all of the candidates, whoever's elected, they're just going to do the status quo anyway. They're not going to try to change anything. It's not going to make any difference, and we're going to keep going, and the issues are going to stay the same. And unfortunately, that type of narrative leads fewer and fewer people to participate in the process.
Is there any truth to that narrative, even a grain?
I think there is. I think there is, because as with anything, any stereotype has some essence of truth to it, right? So I think given past scenarios and past experiences, you know, people just see that things don't really change.
Right.
My thought is, just because it's not changing now or it hasn't changed before, doesn't mean it can't. It doesn't make it impossible. But it will be impossible if we continue to have fewer and fewer people turn out to vote. If we have fewer and fewer people participating in politics, I can't even tell you how much I cringe when people say, "Oh, I'm not political."
Oh, I hate that too.
I cringe. Like, every cell in my body just, like, shrivels up like a raisin. Like, it's awful.
Yeah. Like, okay, check please.
Yeah. Like, okay, we can't be friends. I'm
Right,
sorry.
yeah.
No, that's not true. As your friend, I would try to slowly push you to see that.
Right, yeah.
Being political is not necessarily how you're framing it.
Of course.
So there's a huge education piece, and I think that we need to work in our own neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
Start on your own street. Start on your own block. I'm going to go vote. This is why it's important. Actually have those conversations.
Right.
Do so respectfully, but have the conversations and see if you can bring 1 or 2 people with you, or 3 or 4 people with you. Socially distanced, masks on, right?
Yep.
But most of the line is outside these days anyway, so bring a couple people, stand far apart, visit with your friends for a couple minutes, and go cast your vote based on an informed decision.
Right.
You know, there is truth, and I've heard it said that, you know, politicians don't make enough effort to reach out to people, or you haven't reached out to me personally. And I understand that. I do. But I also understand that depending on the race, you may be trying to reach over 200,000 people in a matter of a couple months.
Right.
And while you want to, logistically, it's extremely difficult being one person.
Of course.
Right?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Hence, any good candidate is going to have multiple platforms from which people can access information.
Right, and engage with you too.
And engage.
Yeah.
And engage. And so if we really look at politics and we look at the root of the word poli, it means pueblo, it means the city, it means the people there.
Right.
And without the people, it doesn't work. Right? And so just as candidates need to reach out to the constituency and the voters and the residents need to come in and meet halfway too.
Yes, they do.
They do.
They do. Yeah, yep.
And that's not in my race, that's any race, right? And so me as a resident, you know, looking at school board members, for example, I live within the 308 school district boundaries. You know, we have a big school board race going on right now. It's a large district. I don't expect that every single candidate is going to come find me in my apartment and knock on my door, right?
Yeah.
So I make sure I have visited all of their websites. I have visited their social media platforms. And in a few cases, I've been able to engage and interact with the candidates, right, to become informed. And that's what I do as a resident.
Absolutely.
Right, to make sure that's happening. Candidates need to do what they can to reach out. Candidates need to do what they can to motivate people. But people need to understand that they're voting for their day-to-day experience.
Right. They're voting for their livelihood. Exactly. Livelihood's sounds a little more dangerous than like day-to-day experience. What Brooke said is better. That's why I just ask questions and shut up. So I've seen and I watch I love politics. I watch and I'm tuned in to all of the city council meetings, right? And you see things from people that are not things that an alderman takes care of, or they write their senator about things that a senator does not take care of. That basic educational piece, it is critical.
It's critical.
Yes, people should understand what they're doing, but also, like, I feel, and I've mentioned this, like, if you're mad enough to march down a street with the bottles of water and the bullhorn and the granola bars, you should go sit there as they debate whatever they're talking about. You know, you should be just as engaged.
Sure.
Just as engaged.
I agree with that. And here's the thing. There is space and purpose to marches and rallies.
Of course.
There is. But the march or the rally, it isn't about that moment. It is about what you do with the energy from that moment afterwards.
There you go.
And how you're using it to engage not only yourself, but others.
Right. Let's take that energy and hopefully perhaps change some legislation or get some new. Exactly.
Right.
So is Treadwell your favorite coffee spot, or did we just match it today? That's it?
I like Treadwell, but I am also a fan of Endiro and Society 57, and I try to frequent all of them because they are all businesses that are just trying to stay afloat within our community.
Right.
And so I try to spread the wealth a little bit.
Got to. Now, before the pandemic, what are some things that you like to do in the city?
Sure, definitely First Fridays. And I am so excited that tonight we have First Fridays again.
It's going down,
Yay!
coming back, yeah.
Right? I will be there, so it'll be great. Hopefully I'll see some people, but I'll be out there as the candidate, with my little flyers.
Sure.
But I did appreciate going and attending as not a candidate, right?
Right.
Where I actually got to visit the different art displays and the different activities, and visit some of the shops and maybe spend a little too much money supporting our local businesses.
But that's good.
But that's a good thing. Good for the businesses, maybe not so good for my bank account, but that's okay. It's worth it. Yeah, so First Friday's definitely high on the list. I enjoy really just hanging out at our eateries. Some of our eateries are great. Like, shout out to Gillerson's because their cheese curds. Oh my gosh! Seriously,
I hear good things about those cheese curds.
Those cheese curds are
okay.
Woof. And then we've got some really great pop-ups and stuff going on in our city. So like during the pandemic, like last summer when I actually had some time, I was able to help in the kitchen with. And I'm not saying this as a candidate. This is just Brooke the resident. I don't want to jeopardize anyone's C3 status.
Right.
Brooke the resident really enjoyed partaking in Goldfinch Cafe's brown bag lunch assembly.
Right.
Right, for Hassett House. That was something that I truly enjoyed doing, and I'm hoping this summer that they're going to continue that so that I can continue to partake in that effort with them. I like some of our pop-up foodies and restaurateurs, if you will. I know tonight I will definitely be having some pulled pork sandwich from Strawberry's Barbecue because they are amazing.
Shout out.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, just hanging with friends and staying in the downtown area. That's kind of where I like to be. That doesn't mean there's not great things going on in the rest of the city. It's just for me, the downtown area is a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Right.
Oh, and Dairy Delight. You will always find me at Dairy Delight.
East Side. Shout outs. Yeah, Ohio. Yeah, that's right. Dairy Delight.
I may be single-handedly keeping them in business these days.
Shouts out to Dairy Delight, y'all.
Yeah.
Who are some of your mentors?
Personally, professionally, politically?
All of the above.
All of the above. There's so many people that have influenced me, honestly. Personally, people that I admire, that I've had the profound privilege of meeting even once in my lifetime. Rigoberta Menchú, who was over here at East Aurora with Peace Jam years back.
What does that sound?
It's an organization.
Oh, okay.
Works with students. So she came as a guest speaker, and so that was just amazing. She has such an aura about her of just humility and love. It's so cool. While I was living in Mexico, I had the opportunity to meet several authors and historians that I'm fond of. And even here well, in Chicago at the National Museum of Mexican Arts, I go there for different presentations and talks and stuff they have. So I've gotten a chance to meet people like Elena Poniatowska, who's just wildly world-renowned writer, and then the late Eduardo Galeano, who is out of South America. Just people like that have really played their work, their written work has really influenced me as a person. You know, within the political sphere, I have people who have mentored me. With this being a nonpartisan race coming up, I'd like to.
Certainly, sure.
But I am very, very grateful to have the people in my corner who I do.
Good.
They are amazing individuals who are extremely dedicated to the work that they do and to making sure that our communities are at doing their best at any given moment.
Right. So now the election is the 6th is Tuesday of next week.
Yes, but you can vote today.
But you can vote today. That is right. You can definitely exercise and go do so. So that's the biggest thing coming up. But what else does Brooke Shanley have coming up? What's 2021 look like for Brooke?
Oh, you know, it's a blank canvas right now. And I'm not used to that, but it's a blank canvas right now. So we'll see where I end up.
It seems like a optimistic and a positive canvas, though. That's my words. I'll guess that.
Life is always good, and there is always something good on its way.
The show ends on a positive note. What is your message to the people of Aurora today?
Go vote. Please vote. Vote for whoever you feel you need to vote for, but please vote.
Right.
But embrace each other. Embrace everybody and everything that makes our city as absolutely wonderful as it is. Because our city is truly amazing. Is truly amazing and has so much potential. And we're only going to realize that potential when we embrace our neighbors.
On behalf of Good Morning Aurora, we really appreciate you taking some time to sit down with us.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It's been fun.
All of you wonderful listeners and viewers, please exercise your right to vote.
Yes.
Please do that. And we will see you guys back here tomorrow for another great episode and interview. Peace out.